ọmọ mi ayọ̀ mi mo dúpẹ́ lọ́wọ́ Ọlọ́run tó fi fún mi. You are a blessing, not a lesson. I can't wait for you to call me daddy. Inú mi dùn, ayọ̀ mi kún. I feel so lucky that I got you. Inú mi dùn, ayọ̀ mi kún. I feel so blessed that I got you.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi. My name is Riziki Ahmed, and last time we were talking on parenting. We started discussing what parenting is, when does parenting begin, and we have seen that parenting begins right from the time we are also being parented. And then we also talked about growing up, things to avoid, like substance use, alcohol, and anything that can harm us and make us not have healthy children. We also talked about the choice of a spouse, and that when we are choosing a spouse, we are actually starting our parenting because we are choosing the mother or the father of our children. We talked about the wedding process and how we should make sure that it is all within the Islamic principles, as that is part of parenting. We also talked about pregnancy and how we should take care of ourselves during pregnancy, and how if it is the husband, he should support the wife through the pregnancy period. It's not an easy period, through the labor period, and the first things we should do once we have this baby, the adhan, the tanweek, and also giving them a good name. And we emphasize that a good name is very important and very powerful, and that will shape this individual that we are really trying to bring up in the best way. So welcome to today's program. In today's program, we are going to talk about postnatal depression. Postnatal depression is a form of illness that a new mother can get, and it can happen within from the time she gets this child to almost 1 year. So it's important to know what the symptoms so that we can help this mother seek help when necessary. And then we're also going to talk about psychosocial stages of development, so that we understand at each stage what our child needs, what they are going through, and why that stage is important, and what we can do to make sure that that stage helps them in future to become wholesome human beings. So I'm going to start with postnatal depression, and we're going to try and understand what postnatal depression is. It's a form of depression that, as I have said, is only uniquely for mothers who have given birth, and at times the father can get it, but very rarely, and it is within the period of 1 year after within the time of giving birth. So most mothers, after they give birth, as we explained, we said labor is very taxing, can be quite a challenge. So the first 2 weeks of delivery, at times mothers do get what we call the blues. And this is just a bit of sadness, feeling that they are not very happy, even though they have this new baby. And at times it's just this feeling of being overwhelmed by having a baby, crying, you're not sleeping well, and having gone through a very taxing labor period. But if it goes beyond 2 weeks, and we still notice that this mother is still looking very sad, the mother is not looking very happy, she's not bonding with the child well, we start checking, could she be having postnatal depression? So this being an illness, it is something that will need some form of treatment. So I'm going to explain what are the symptoms of postnatal depression, and when should we seek help. So signs that somebody you know or a mother might be having postnatal depression are when they are persistently sad and have a low mood and could cry the whole time. They don't have an interest in the things that they had before. Even maybe you come and visit her and she just doesn't seem happy, she doesn't seem to want to talk, and might want to just be on her own. Lack of energy and feeling tired the whole time. She might just want to stay in the bed the whole time, not get out, not want to do anything, and not want to do her normal chores. Trouble sleeping at night. We do know that a new mother will have a child who will disturb, but this mother, even when the child is not disturbing, might have a very rough period, like trying to get to sleep, or might sleep and wake up, or might oversleep during the day, or just look like the sleep pattern is a bit disturbed. They might have problem concentrating, problem making decisions. Very simple decisions like what should be cooked today can be like a big decision that they are feeling they're not able to. And frightening thoughts. They might have thoughts of maybe harming the baby, or they might feel they're not bonding with the baby, or they might think this baby is just not their baby. So they might have thoughts that could be a bit scary. So when we notice this in a new mother, it's very important that we seek help. We make them seek help. They should see a psychiatrist. They can be put on medication and also see a psychologist where they go through some form of therapy to help them cope. So it's not something we can ignore. And postnatal depression is not caused by lack of iman. We don't say they are not having enough iman, or they are not good mothers, or they are not good parents. It is an illness and it can get anybody. So it's important to note that. Then when we go back to our psychosocial stages, in the psychosocial stages, we have 8 stages. So we're going to start with the first stage today. And this is the 0 to 1, just when the baby has been born to when they get to be 1 year. This stage, we call it a stage where we have what we call basic trust versus mistrust. This is where we develop trust. Remember, when a newborn is born, this baby can do nothing for themselves. This baby cannot feed themselves. This baby cannot change themselves. This baby cannot lift themselves. And it has been proven scientifically that if you leave a baby without even touching that baby for a long period of time, that child can die just because of lack of touch. So babies actually thrive when they are touched, when they are held, and they need us so much. And this child, when they cry, they are actually passing a message. When they are hungry, they will cry. When they wet themselves or they have poo-pooed in the diaper, they will cry. When they are feeling hot, they will cry. If they are feeling cold, they will cry. So this baby is totally dependent on us. Otherwise, they cannot survive. So when a baby is crying, we should know there is something the baby needs. And as a mother, you tend to understand different cries are for different things. If a baby is hungry, a mother will know this baby needs to be fed. And when do we feed children? We feed a child on demand. If a child cries because they are hungry, we feed them. So if this child cries when they are hungry and that demand is not met, the child cries when they are wet and we don't change them. The child cries because they want to be held and we don't hold them. The child starts developing a sense of mistrust of the world, that this world is not a very nice place, that my needs cannot be met. So it's very important that when a child cries, the needs are met, because what we are making the child understand is this world is safe for them and their needs will be met. And when we talk about breastfeeding, I'm not going to leave that alone. Breastfeeding is very important, and it is important that as parents we breastfeed. For the first 6 months, we should not give this child any other food apart from breast milk. This will help your child not to grow healthy, to avoid getting infections, and it builds a lot of their immunity. And this child also is bonding with the mother. When we are breastfeeding, that's the time the child is bonding. And this child now is learning from this mother that this world is safe. And as we will notice, when a mother is breastfeeding, the child looks at the mother in the eye, and the mother will look at the child. They are developing a relationship. And as we will see nowadays, you'll hear a complaint of parents saying, my child does not have time for me, my child is so busy with her friends, or parents who complain, my children never visit me after they have grown up, they are now adults, they have a life of their own. It's because we don't bond with our children. And this bonding starts right at breastfeeding. So when a mother is breastfeeding, she should not breastfeed when she's busy reading a book. She should not breastfeed when she's busy chatting with somebody else or busy watching television, because she's supposed to be giving that child all her attention, because they're now creating that bond with this child. So when we don't do those things, then we come later on and complain that my child does not have a relationship with me. The question is, did we create that relationship in the first place? So breastfeeding is a form of very important bonding between the mother and the child, and should be given the seriousness it deserves. And we should breastfeed at least for 2 years. So we shouldn't say that after 1 year, then I can stop breastfeeding. Let's give them their rights, which is 2 years. So why are this child developing a trust? They are developing this trust because they know if I am wet, I will be changed. If I am hungry, I will be fed. So this child starts trusting the world, and this child develops what we call trust. And this child is developing an understanding of the world from the way the parents are behaving around this child. So if that child is mistreated at that early stage, that child knows that life is not nice, and they are more likely to also become unkind when they become adults. So what do they need? They need a lot of affection, they need our warmth, they need regularity. If this is done at this time, it is done every day. Children like consistency. Like if a child is bathed every day at 10, wash them or bake them every day at 10. If the child is fed at this time and tomorrow they are fed different times, they start getting confused. So children like a world where they can predict what will happen next. So it's very important that we create a sense of predictability in their lives. We make sure that these children can trust the world. So what are we developing in a 0 to 1 child? We are developing for them trust. And what happens when we don't develop this trust? In the next session, what we are going to look at is what happens when children don't develop trust, and why is this stage so important that it should not be overlooked. Because 0 to 1, by the time the child is 1 year, they already will have known what is happening around them. They already know if they can trust their parent or not. They already know when the parent is lying. Like, I'll give you this when I go out, I'll bring you this, and they don't. So it's a very important period for us to teach our children that the world can be trusted. And that is just by making sure that we are meeting their needs as they arise. Because remember, a child who is just born a baby cannot meet its needs. It needs us for it to survive. So most important thing is for us to dwell on meeting these needs and making sure that we are there for this baby. Because at a 0 to 1, it's a very sensitive time. If this baby does not have enough attention, this baby cannot thrive. And at times, if you're having a caregiver, at times somebody who will come in to help in taking care of this baby, it's important that we make sure that this person is consistent in meeting the baby's needs, make sure they are meeting these needs, and there is no way they are abusing this baby at any time. And we have seen some of these people whom we call caregivers, whom we live with our babies, abusing them. And this can have a very big impact in your baby later on in life. So it is very, very important to know who we are introducing to our baby. And here, when we're talking of a parent, I'm not talking only of the mother. Because somebody might think when we are saying meeting the needs of the baby, it's only the mother meeting the needs of the baby. It's not only the mother meeting the needs. The father needs to play a very big role too, because the father is also bonding with this baby. The father needs to hold the baby. The father needs to sing to the baby, play with the baby. The father really needs to create a bond with the baby so that when they grow up, they still have a very nice relationship with the father. So most of the time we find that our parents are absent. Child needs to feel that sense of security, which can only be provided by the parents and the caregiver if we are employing a caregiver. So, and I have emphasized that if you're employing a caregiver to take care of your baby, it is very important that they understand that if they do the wrong things, they can mess your baby for a lifetime. So it's a very sensitive stage that we shouldn't take for granted, and we shouldn't just let anybody be a caregiver. We must find out who is this person that we are introducing into our baby's life, because this is a very, very sensitive stage. It's a stage where we are trying to make the child understand that the world is a safe place. If this baby does not get to understand the world is a safe place, they grow up to be adults who are very suspicious. And when I talk about this, I always make a joke of, in your lifetime, I'm sure you have met somebody who does not trust people easily. Like whatever you tell them, they'll always be doubting it. Are you sure this will happen? Are you sure you're going to do this? Are you sure? And they can be very, very mistrustful. And at times I joke about the idea of you can't even put your phone down and somebody will want to go through it. If it's a spouse, maybe a wife, the minute your phone is down, she'll want to go through it. Could it be this person never learned how to trust? They just can't trust anybody. And at times, if it's the husband, he wants to also go through the wife's handbag, the wife's things. They will keep calling, are you sure you're where you are? Are you sure you're where? And we always joke around with the story of the blender, of the husband who would ask the wife, where are you? And then she says, I'm in the house. He says, put the blender on. So the wife would put the blender on and blend. Then the guy knows, oh, she's in the house. So the wife realized, oh, so I need to carry my blender wherever I go. So anytime he would call and say, where are you? She says, I'm in the house, do the blender. She blends, so the guy knows so that shows a lot of mistrust. So where do we develop that kind of mistrust? It can come from having learned that we cannot trust people because of the way we were brought up as babies. So when we are taking care of this baby, meeting their needs, making sure that we are consistent, we are actually developing trust in them, which is very important later on in life, because there is no relationship that can work when there is no trust. So if this baby does not develop to trust, it can never be an adult who has trust. So the relationships that they develop later on in life will not work, because if they can't trust you, who wants to be in a relationship where they are not trusted? Nobody would love to be in such a relationship. So what are we building in this child? A sense of trusting other people. When we don't build that in them, they have a very rough time as adults, because they're not able to trust people. There are these people who are very suspicious of everybody. You're even trying to help them, they'll wonder, why are you trying to help me? What is behind this? What are you gaining out of this? They can never trust anybody. And when I talk like that, I usually say, think of somebody you know like that. And they will automatically come into your head that they are such people. They can actually become very withdrawn. These people who cannot mingle with others very easily, they will take their time. They always feel, if I mingle with these people, they might harm me, or they are not out for any good, or maybe they're just trying to use me. So they are always very careful with anything they are doing with any other person. At times they don't have confidence, they lack confidence. Like you look at somebody, maybe they are well educated, they should be very confident, but when you look at them, you don't see them having enough confidence. So all that can be traced back into that period of 0 to 1. So it's very important that this parent builds this in this child, makes sure the child gets these needs that they want met. And remember, we are saying this is a child who cannot meet their needs. If I cannot remove my diaper, I'm dependent solely on you. What happens when you don't remove my diaper? What happens if I'm crying and I'm not fed? What happens if I'm feeling cold and I'm not kept warm? What happens if I'm feeling very hot and you don't remove me from that situation? What happens when I am sick and you don't cuddle me? So if the child is not getting that, this child can be a very cold person later on in life. And we start wondering, why is this child behaving, why is this adult behaving this way? And when we are talking like this, I'm sure you can imagine people you know who can be very cold, have no warmth, they're not reliable, people you can't rely on. Because we are saying if they cannot trust, they also do not have a sense of trustworthiness. So like we talk about corruption and people who cannot be trusted. I cannot trust anybody. We cannot even trust people whom we feel we need to trust. But why are they not trustworthy? Because they have not learned to trust the world. So if they didn't learn to trust the world, how can they become trustworthy? So what do we end up creating? Human beings that cannot be trusted. So they don't trust and they also cannot be trusted. So when we are talking about 0 to 1, it's a very important stage for any adult. And when you're talking about relationships, if there is no trust in the relationships, it's very easy for relationships to break. So you can imagine a marriage where there is no trust. That marriage is very easily broken. And where do we end up? We end up in a dysfunctional family. And when we started the programs the first time, we talked about the way broken relationships, broken homes, dysfunctional homes lead to all the vices that we have in the community. We know that the children from these homes are most likely to involve themselves in crime, most likely to be the ones who will use substance, most likely to be the ones who will have early sexual experiences, most likely even to get defiled. So these are stages that at times can be taken for granted, but actually can make or break a human being. So the 0 to 1, let's take it as seriously as it is. Let's always tell ourselves, my parenting is about making sure this child negotiates from the time they are 0 to 1 year, getting to understand that their world is a safe place, that their parents can be trusted, that we don't beat them. I've seen people who beat a child of 6 months just because the child has wet themselves. If a child is trying to crawl and they break something, they are shouted at. Now, when you're shouting at this child, you're now making this child feel the world is not a safe place. Because the first thing for you to do is when your child starts learning how to crawl is to create a safe environment for this child. Whatever can be broken should be removed, because this child does not know that can be broken. And we've seen children, like what they do, they will hit something to see, like they try to sense things with their senses. If it is a cup, they'll put it into their mouth. Whatever they'll pick, they'll put into their mouth, because that is what they learn what that thing is. They want to taste it. They want to hit it to hear what sound does this thing make. They want to feel it. They'll even drop it. If it falls down, what sound does it make? So if this child who is 7 months drops that thing and it breaks, are you going to blame that child? This child is in a learning experience. For them, they are learning. What is this? They want to understand what it is. If you're leaving the house, do not cheat the child. I'm just here. Just speak to the child, even if you think they can't hear, but they will understand. Tell them that I am going and I will come back. So do not cheat that I'm just around here. If you promised you're bringing the child something, I'll go out and bring you something. Please bring for that child whatever you promised, because we are teaching this child that the world is safe and we can be trusted. So most of the times we don't do things that can be trusted. We cheat the baby thinking the baby will not understand. And then we are saying creating a routine for this baby. Babies like routine. If I'm bathed at 10, tomorrow can I be bathed at 10? So let's, unless there is something that will make the bathing not happen at 10, let's be very consistent with what we are doing and create a routine for them. That helps them even later on in life, that they're able to follow a routine and they're able to understand that life is all about routine. And at this stage, as a Muslim parent, we can keep mentioning words. Like when you're feeding this baby, you can start with Bismillah. This child will start learning that before I eat, I should say Bismillah. So starting, even when we are breastfeeding, we start with Bismillah. So eventually the child starts understanding that before eating anything, you're supposed to say Bismillah. After they finish feeding, Alhamdulillah. So you are teaching them small Islamic things, and you are making them appreciate that there is somebody who has actually given us that food. There's somebody who has actually made this place safe, and that there's a higher being than the parents. So these babies, once they are getting this Bismillah, Alhamdulillah, and we keep mentioning Allah, we keep doing dhikr, it is registering in their brains, and that is part of what we are making them feel safe. They know that there's somebody who will keep them safe. And at this stage also, we should know when the baby is sick. When a baby is sick, we can tell. The baby will be fidgety, the baby will cry, might have a fever and everything. So we should know when to take the baby to hospital. That is part of being a very good parent, and part of making the child feel that they can trust us. That when they are sick, we can meet even the need of when they are sick. When it is bedtime, the baby might not sleep as well as maybe we would want them to. But as a parent, when the baby wakes up, it's important that we also wake up with the baby, because maybe the baby wants to feed. So we wake up with the baby and feed the baby. It's not that because it's bedtime, we expect the baby to sleep until morning. The baby cannot sleep until morning. The baby might wake up during the night. So let's make our babies feel safe. And then we have what we call cot deaths. And these are usually because we are trying to imitate the West, where we want our babies to sleep in baby cots. And they're not getting a lot of human touch. And that is where we are getting cot deaths. So babies just die for no reason. Like somebody comes and finds the baby is dead, and we call it a cot death. So for me, I always emphasize, it's very important that it's, if possible, even sleep with your baby on your same bed. Sleep with your baby in your same room. Like it's not a must, the baby should have a room in the distant end, and then we say we have put, what are they called, these things they put where the baby, when it cries, it can alert you that the baby is crying. Or when you're carrying your baby, you're carrying the baby in a basket. The baby needs human touch. And there's nothing better than when we tie our baby on the back. For me, I always feel we Africans have always done it the right way, because this baby is having a human touch the whole time. If I'm washing clothes with my baby on the back, my baby knows they are with me. I'm washing plates with my baby on my back, my baby can feel safe because they are with me. So let's avoid aping the West so much with everything, because some of the problems they are facing are because of the way they have been bringing up their babies. So let's not just carry everything we see. I hate this basket where people carry the baby in a basket. I feel, why not carry your baby? Why not have it in your arms where the baby can feel you? So it's very important that we look at some of the things we are doing. You might be thinking maybe we are getting more developed, but at the end of the day, later on in life, we come and say that my baby or my child and I do not have a good relationship. So let us create a safe place for our children where they can grow, learning how to trust and not to have a lot of mistrust in their life. So that's the end of today's program. So next week we are going to look at the next stage, which is 2 to 3 years. We are going to understand what is happening at that stage and what is our role as parents. So until we meet next time, this is Riziki.
Ọmọ mi, ayọ̀ mi, mo dúpẹ́ lọ́wọ́ Ọlọ́run tó fi fún mi. You are a blessing, not a lesson. I can't wait for you to call me daddy. Inú mi dùn, ayọ̀ mi kún. I feel so lucky that I got you. Inú mi dùn, ayọ̀ mi kún. I feel so blessed that I got you.